The next galactic war was just around the corner. The first one in thousands of years, before even the League of Stars had formed. The Caterians and Vostorians have both been expanding for years, gaining more stars, more resources, and more people. Unfortunately, neither race was very happy that the other race was doing the same. Many races had tried to placate them, but to no avail. Instead, a war would break out over a warp gate. Specifically, Warp Gate D378. Warp Gate D378 was in a strategic location for both the Caterians and Vostorians. Whoever got it would be able to apply their power across the entire region of space and be able to respond to, or launch, an attack quickly. However, the biggest advantage was that they would be the only ones with a warp gate in that area. A warp gate bent and distorted space so greatly that they couldn't be built anywhere near each other. This allowed D378 to be the only warp gate in that entire region of space. Even with the benefits of the warp gate, it was still just an excuse, the spark in a room full of gunpowder. The war was expected to start after the League of Stars assembly. Everyone had the same expectations for the assembly. Caterians would say why the warp gate D378 belongs to them, the Vostorians would say why warp gate D378 belongs to them, and then both sides would claim D378 as theirs, thus beginning the Galactic War. Before this, the humans had a requested time to present a proposal, yet no one had great expectations for the humans' proposal. All the races had seen humanity's history. War and atrocities were nothing new to them. The humans strode up to the lectern in the middle of the meeting hall, knowing all of this. Few of the aliens even looked towards them, preferring to continue their whispering. None of them wanted to show all their cards yet, but they all needed to know where everyone else stood. Some wanted to appear neutral, some wanted to show who they had allied with, and a few were still trying to stop the war. The humans stood at the lectern with a gentle smile on their face and waited for the hall to quiet down. The human representative spoke clearly and with complete certainty. The Human Federation comes today to request authorization to build a warp gate at S314. As they finished speaking, the holodisplay showed the location of S314. All the races were now paying attention, uncertain of what the humans were trying to do. As they studied the holodisplay, a murmur grew in the meeting hall. S314 was close to D378. You couldn't build both. Finally, the Caterians spoke up. That is not allowed. S314 is not an allowed warp gate location. You cannot build them wherever you want. The human representative looked up at the Caterians with the same gentle smile on their face. League of Stars Rule 13 Section C says that we are allowed to perform any desired modifications of that system. That includes turning it into a warp gate. As this will not interfere with any current warp gates, we see no reason to prohibit it. Before the human representative had even finished, most of the races were rushing to look up Rule 13. It was a low number, so they all knew it was an old rule. As they read the rule, it dawned on them what the humans were suggesting. S314 was their homeworld. It was where they had been born. The League of Stars gave special privileges and protection for a homeworld. It was considered to be one of the most sacred places for a species, and the League of Stars treated it as such. Everyone sat in silence, as the human gently smiled. No one had ever tried this. The Caterian spoke up again. This will require all the resources in your system. If you look at Section 6 in our plan for the warp gate, we have already laid out the expected resource requirement, and where we will obtain them, the human replied. No, I'm saying you will have to disassemble all the planets in the system. We are aware of that, the human representative said, without a single change in their demeanour. The hall fell silent again. The aliens were taking a little while to process all of this. The Medirians were the first to speak after the pause. We give our approval. A simple statement that held significant weight. The Medirians were considered one of the most virtuous races. They were found helping at any disaster, and at the front lines of any squabble protecting the powerless. The Kovorians, a merchant race, spoke next. We also give our approval of your plan, and if any supplies are necessary, we will be more than happy to provide. Before the Kovorian had even sat down, the Sumertians, a race of inventors and builders, spoke. We offer our expertise in building the gate. Oh, and we improve your plan too. The human representatives stood with the same gentle smile on their face, but with a new glimmer in their eyes. They knew this was going well. The Medirians gave the humans the moral high ground, and they could avoid being seen as the aggressors. The Kovorians and Sumertians provided the resources and expertise, ensuring the gate could be built. "We appreciate the support from all three of you," the humans said. Silent approvals began rolling in, as many of the races had weighed the odds and decided it was worth trying. Yet the approval quickly slowed to a trickle, and finally to a stop. Not enough of them were ready to bet on the humans. This was still within the humans' expectations, and the human representative pulled out a sheet of paper with a speech written on it. They would have to convince a few more aliens to support them. In the worst-case scenario, they would build the gate without approval, stopping either side from building their own. Before the human representative could begin their speech, a hush fell over the hall. Everyone's attention was focused on a single alien. The Gordian representative had stood up and was preparing to speak. The Gordians were an old race, one of the races that had helped form the League of Stars. They had also been one of the biggest supporters of it throughout its history. Yet no one was quite sure how powerful the Gordians were. It was well known that the creation of the League of Stars had not been a peaceful time, but the Gordians had survived. Several other races, specifically those that had terrorized the League of Stars and the Gordians during this time, had not survived. No one wished to find out how powerful the Gordians were. "We also provide our approval of the humans' plan," the Gordian said, with a deep voice that cut through the air. There was a rush activity as many races prepared to approve the plan. Yet before they could approve, the Gordians spoke again. "We also pledge our full military support to the humans to protect their home system, S314. Even the races that had been rushing to approve froze at this. The Gordians had never offered their military support to another species. They would move when needed, but never with such an open offer. As the full reality of what had just been promised hit the aliens, there was a rush to approve the humans' plan. In a matter of seconds, only two races hadn't given approval, the Catarians and the Vostorians. Then more than enough races had approved, the human began to step down from the podium. The Vostorian spoke up at last. "You know you won't be able to live in that system anymore, right? The space distortion will kill any species that spends too long near it." "We are aware of the health risk of living near a warp gate," the human replied, the gentle smile still on their face. "You will never again be able to bask in the warmth of your home sun, the sun that has nurtured your species since its very beginning, and that you have watched since before you remember. We are aware of the consequences of this decision," the human cut them off with, no longer wearing the gentle smile, replaced with a cold, emotionless face. They stared at the Vostorian with none of the gentleness or warmth they had shown throughout the meeting and added, "We are well aware of what this decision means." The human stepped off the podium and began to leave the meeting hall when a whisper snuck into their ear. "You have accomplished what we could not. You have our gratitude." The human looked back to see the Gordian smiling at them. They had pushed a whisper to the human representative, a trick they must have learned long ago. The human left, a small smile on their face. As the news of the assembly spread, the aliens celebrated, treating the humans as heroes. The Catarians and Vostorians tried to restart the war effort, but all the other races had crowded into the human faction, and were using their name to deflect any advances towards war. The few species that still wanted to back the Catarians or Vostorians were too afraid of the power the human faction held. Peace had been gained, and the galaxy celebrated. Except for the humans. They instead packed whatever they could, even entire monuments, and put them on spaceships. They were simply trying to salvage as much of their history as they could, knowing that much of it would soon be lost. But soon, it was time for the disassembly of the humans' homeworld, Earth. The humans watched Earth in its last moments, before spreading out around the galaxy. The other races welcomed them into their worlds and homes, calling them the Nomads, out of respect and remembrance for what they had done. Remembrance of a race that had thrown away their origin for peace in the galaxy. A race even the Gordians wanted to be close with.